Hi, my name is Justin, aka Ghost Reader, and today the hat is back. So today I'll be talking about the books that I read in the month of March. I have recorded this video. This would be the third time. The first time the quality was really bad. The second time I made a mistake. Well, it got deleted in some weird convoluted way, and so now this is my third time doing this, so hopefully I can get through it. And since I have a lot of books to get through, let's go ahead and jump right in. So the first book that I want to talk about, and as you know, every month I try to read one fiction, at least one fiction, one nonfiction, one poetry book. That used to be like a whatever I wanted to section, but put one poetry book and one graphic novel. So the first four will come from each of those categories, and then I'll talk about the other books that I read. So the first book that I read was Love, Hate, and Other Filters by Samara Ahmed. This book is about a Indian American Muslim girl named Maya. She lives in the suburbs of Chicago, and she wants to go to school in NYU to study film. However, her parents are traditional Indian parents, and they want her to stay close to home and marry a good Indian boy. And but she likes this other guy who goes to school with her, who is not Indian himself. So while she's trying to deal with the expectations of her family and her versus her own expectations for what she wants in life, there's a terrorist attack, and the suspect of that attack carries the same last name as she does, and so she then faces basically discrimination and Islamophobia because people equate her with the suspected terrorist. So the author did a really good job at looking at Islamophobia, trying to find yourself, especially when your parents have one idea what they want your life to be, and when you have an idea of what you want your life to be. So this was a really good read, young adult fiction, and if you're looking for something to read from young adult fiction, I highly recommend Love, Hate, and Other Filters. The second book that I read in the month of March was Redefining Rape, Sexual Violence in the Era of Suffrage and Segregation by Estelle B. Freeman. And basically this book is exactly what the title says. It basically follows a legal history of the fight that women went through in order to have laws that adequately and I still said it wrong, that justly punish offenders, sexual offenders who basically sexually assaulted women. It was a long and hard fight that was actually really tied into the idea of what citizenship was and what rights went along with being a citizen, and also for who, because women, of course, were not given the right to vote and suffrage until the early 1900s, but those rights were not given to black women, or at least they were not allowed to exercise them in the way that white women were. And also the idea that black men would become rapists was used to keep them down and to justify lynchings, when in fact a lot of lynchings of black men, while they use rape as excuse for killing them, was really was just an excuse to do it. So it was also used, sexual assault was used as a weapon to keep blacks, men and women, from joining the political process, and also to keep women as a whole in their place in society. So this was a really good book. I highly suggest, if you looking for a book talking about sexual assault. A lot of things that were talked about in this book are still being fought over in courtrooms and in places, workplaces today. So this is a really good and important book, I would say, to read. So the next book I'm going to talk about is the graphic novel that I read in March, and that is Monstress by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, who did the artwork. And this is volume 2. I read volume 1 last month, and basically this continues the story of Micah, who is trying to figure out what this basically monster god is that is in her arm. Both are trying to figure out, because the monster in her arm also only has bits and pieces of memories of his past life, and he's trying to figure it out as well. And they find a place, about a place where they think they can find answers. So they, with the help of pirates, they go out to this island in search of answers as to what she is, what the monster really is, and his purpose, and what part her mother played in all this. And so the artwork in this is beautiful. The story is great, and I can't wait for Volume 3 to come out, which I think is in late August. Now, for the poetry read of last month, I read the poems of Elly, Memories of a Holocaust Survivor. I actually met the woman who wrote this at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. She actually signed it for me. And basically this is a collection of poems that covers her life from when she was a little child up until during the Holocaust, and then going over her later life, and basically exploring her dealing with her own survivor's guilt of surviving the camps. One of the most powerful parts of this book is when she talks about the fact that she went to Auschwitz, and there, like on the wall, she saw a picture of her mother and brother, and that brought back a whole bunch of guilt and memories about that time. And she remembered that when the train came to Auschwitz and they got off the train, someone told her mother to give her brother to someone else, and for her, Elly Gross, to say that she was 18 even though she was 15. And her mother looked at her and said, should we do it? And she said, no, we shouldn't. I'm 18, my brother's 5, you should keep him. And when they went to this election, her mother and her brother got sent to the gas chambers, while she herself was sent to basically work in labor camps. So she still felt some survivor's guilt over that, and she explores that through the series of poems in this book. But she also talks about the fact that she, after the war, she eventually found a husband. She came to the United States, and she actually went on to not only complete high school, get a GED, but also to finish college, and I believe it was English. I think so. I forget. But that is why this book was so great, because and then it also explores the fact that she talks about the time when she went back to Auschwitz and other camps in Europe, and she talks about a series of things that she heard about from stories from those camps as well. So this was a really interesting book. It was heart-wrenching at times, but I'm very glad I got to read it, and I wish the writer of this all the best in her golden years. Now for some other books that I read in March, and one of those is another graphic novel, Black Panther, Avengers of the New World Part 1 by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and this was an okay read. It wasn't great, it wasn't bad, it was okay. Basically, in this book, Wakanda's just gone through a revolution in which Wakanda is no longer a monarchy, but is now a constitutional monarchy, and they're trying to recover from that. But now they're being attacked by a race of beings called originators, and these originators are claiming that the old gods are dead, that the Wakandans believe in are dead, and now they're returning. So basically, it also explores his relationship with Storm, because in the comics, at one point, him and Storm were also Black Panther and Storm were a couple at one point, but that didn't work out. So it explores their relationship as well, and introduces some recognizable villains. If you've seen the movie, one recognizable villain is introduced again in this graphic novel. So it was like I said, it was good. The artwork at times was good, at other times it was okay, but I do want to see what part 2 is about, because I read a little bit about part 2, and part 2 looks to be a lot better than part 1 was. So that was Black Panther, Avengers of the New World Part 1. So another book that I read, graphic novel that I read, was Aliens Omnibus Volume 1. So basically this picks up after, I believe, the second Aliens movie. The names are a bit changed because I think they couldn't get the rights, but it follows the Colonial Marine and the little girl who survived Aliens, the Alien movie. Ripley puts them in the cryo sleep, and then she does too at the end of Aliens 2, Part 2. And this picks up some years later, with them on Earth, and basically the alien has found his way to Earth because the corporations are still trying to figure out a way to weaponize it, and basically all heck breaks loose. This was good, not just because of like the action sequences with the aliens and stuff like that. But really what I liked most about this was the fact that it explored and compared and contrast, mainly contrasted what the alien represented and what human beings are. And you have human beings who are really complicated, they feel emotions, and they feel superior to everything, while you have this other being which is driven mainly to reproduce and to kill. And when these two meet in battle, usually it is the alien who comes out on top because he knows no fear and or greed or just basically human emotion. He just goes on pure instinct, and almost every time he wins the battle. So this was just a great series from the start to the finish. This book, not series, was great. I also read the part 2, which wasn't as good, but I read part 2 in April this month, which is now April, but it wasn't as good as Omnibus Volume 1. But I really highly recommend this if you liked the Alien movies or are interested in learning more about the expanded universe. This is a very good read. I also read, I meant to read both of the books 2 and 3 in the Binti series. However, I was not able to get to book 3, but I did finish book 2, which is Binti Home. And basically, the main character, Binti, she has experienced some changes since she's gone away from home to Azuma University. I won't talk about the changes because that's kind of a spoiler for book 1, but she wants to go home because she kind of wants to find herself. However, when she comes home, she finds that her family isn't really able to fully accept the changes that she's gone through, and she herself kind of hasn't fully accepted those changes, and she basically has to confront that as she comes back, and she finds out that she has a lot more of her heritage than she eventually thought. I really like this. It's really well done Afrofuturism, and the author has done a really good job with this series so far. So I'm going to go ahead and read book 3 at some point, but maybe not next month. I don't know when, but I will try to get to book 3 at some point. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about a book that I was supposed to finish reading but did not finish. Unfortunately, at least in March. I will finish it probably this month, but that's The Fortunes of Africa, by Martin Meredith. This was supposed to be my quarterly read, and I'm almost done, but I haven't finished it. But I'm far enough in. This is a book of history, so I'm far enough in that I can talk about it. And we'll probably make a whole video on its own when I finally finish reading it. I think I would do it for all my quarterly reads from here on out. So this book basically talks about the history of Africa from the point of view of the wealth and the magnificent trade routes that came in and out of Africa during basically the whole entire, from I think it starts as early as ancient Egypt and moves all the way up into the present day, talking about the slavery, the slave trade, not only in the West but also in the East and through the Sahara Desert up into the Mediterranean. Talking about the Arab invasion of Africa and how they swept through North Africa, and the changes that had there, the trade routes on the eastern part of Africa that connected to the Arabia and India and the other Pacific islands, in South Africa where they found diamonds and ivory within the deep Congo, and basically the exportation of the colonization when that began, the scramble for Africa. So all of that is talked about in this book, and it's good in that it opens your eye to a lot of stuff that you may not have heard about before, but it hasn't been as exciting as to read as all the other stuff that I've been reading, which is why I get distracted and start reading other things. So I will be finishing this, and I'll probably do a video just about this book when I've done so. Alright, so that is it for me for my wrap up for March. I had a great month. I should have my April TBR up. I haven't, unfortunately, already put it up because I've been a bit busy lately and unfortunately have not been able to find the time to do so. But I will have that up soon after this video. So how was your March reads? If you had good reads, please talk about them in the comment section below. I always enjoy your comments. I want to thank you all for getting me over 500 subscribers. I've only been on YouTube for about 4 months and I'm over 500, so thank you very much for that. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to subscribe to see more from me, please hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at GhostRees28. That's if you missed that or want to know how to spell it, it's down in the description box below. And as always, to you out there, keep reading.